Hello, welcome to Open Microtomy. Today we're going to be breaking down 5 simple steps to instantly improve your comedy. Stick around. What's up everybody, I am Matt with Open Microtomy, and today we're going to be breaking down 5 easy steps that you can be doing right away to improve your stand-up comedy. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Step number 1, you need to be watching other comedians. Whether it's your friends, whether it's other open micers, or anybody in your area, those are people you need to be paying attention to. But also, you still need to be watching professional comedians. It's not great to try to emulate them or try to, compare yourself to them, but you need to be watching what professionals are doing so that you can get an understanding of what a professional comedian looks like. And also, it's just fun. It's fun to watch stand-up comedy. You need to remember, if you were doing stand-up comedy, you should love stand-up comedy. So this really should just kind of go standard. You need to be watching other comedy. But this also comes down to a local level. You need to understand how your own personal scene works. You need to understand the crowds that you are working with. Not because you need to adapt to these specific crowds so that you can use that forever, but you need to learn how to adapt to those crowds so that you know how to adapt to a crowd. Every city is going to have a different type of person in it. Every scene is going to have a different type of person in it. You need to understand how that crowd works, how your audience works, so that when you go on stage, you know what you need to be coming with. You need to understand your audience so that you can be the best that you are. Make sure that you are watching other comedians, otherwise you're going to have no idea what's going on in your scene. Your local comedians are going to be so valuable. You need to be paying attention to the comics in your local scene so that you can not only improve in the scene, but also watch the people who've been doing comedy for a while. Watch how they're improving. Watch the people who are going from being a year 2 comic to a year 3 comic. Watch their improvement and see what they're doing so that you can say, okay, I'm about 2 years in. What did so-and-so do at year 2 to get them to where they are at year 3? Pay attention to the people who are constantly improving, and you will improve along with them. Step number 2, record your sets. It's super awkward to watch yourself on stage. I get it. I completely understand. It's super weird watching yourself going up there and whether or not you do well, especially when you don't do well. Watching yourself do well is extremely fun. Watching a set of you doing badly is painful, but it's going to help you a lot. You can see where things started to go bad if you record your sets, or if you only do audio, you can start to hear when things aren't going in your favor. Normally, if you're recording on like a phone, unless you're using like a lavalier mic where you're only getting just your own audio, maybe you're not gonna hear the crowd. But if you're recording with your phone or you're recording with the camera, just anything that's going to encapsulate the room, one of my personal favorite things to do is just find something that you can set your phone up on a table. If you set your phone on an angle toward the stage, you're going to be capturing your body language, you're going to be actually capturing yourself on stage. You're also going to be getting the audience's laughter in the background, if there is laughter. And if there's not, you're going to notice that there's no laughter and you're going to improve your jokes. If you pay attention to the way that you're using your body language, or how much you're moving, or the way that you're holding your microphone, were you holding it too close to your face, were you holding it far away from your face, what were you doing that possibly you could be doing better? You need to be paying attention to these things because in the moment you might not notice the things that you're doing incorrectly or that you could be doing better. But if you're watching back and you're noticing some trends, especially over the course of however many times, if you watch 3-4 of your sets and you say, I did the same thing wrong in all of these sets, then you're going to think to yourself, this is something that I can improve on. Something that I immediately needed to improve on and was brought up by several people was I used to pace like a caged animal. It was super bad. And in the time, I never noticed that I was doing it because to me, I had this nervous energy and I was going back and forth across the stage thinking that I was engaging the audience when really I just kind of looked like a mad person. I really didn't know what was going on. But when I started to watch my sets and I kind of took the feedback that my friends were giving me and I noticed, wow, it really does look pretty nuts when I'm walking back and forth across the stage. It made me improve my comedy because I stopped doing that. Instead, this is just kind of a side tip. One thing that I did is I planted my feet, I put the mic in front of me, and I just talked directly into the microphone I did that for a long time before I really started to get comfortable with just standing still and delivering my jokes. And then eventually I was like, all right, I'm more comfortable standing still and I can deliver my jokes without feeling like I'm pacing, I'm slowing down my speech. Now I can take the mic out and maybe I won't wander around as much. And I did. So it's just proof positive that if you watch your mistakes and you're aware of your mistakes, you'll eventually be like, wow, I need to stop making that mistake. And you'll move forward and comedy will improve. Step number 3, you need to write your jokes down either on paper or a computer. And you need to be doing this so that you can look at your jokes word for word and determine what words could I replace, what words could I cut, what words could be different, what do I need to do with the word economy that I have, and what can I do to make it better. When you are on stage, whether or not you think about it, you do have a limited amount of words that you can say. And unless you're gonna be up there like, you only really have, I mean, I don't have a rough estimate, but you don't have that many. You really need to take every word that you're saying into consideration. When you're up there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, every single word needs to be important. And I know it's kind of wild to think, wow, I need every word that I say needs to be important. Yes and no, but you need to look at it like yes. You need to look at everything like an objective truth and then kind of work your way down and be like, wow, I don't really always have to do these things, but that doesn't help you at all. You need to be thinking, this is the thing that I have to be doing all of the time. And then if you fall short of that mark, it's not a huge deal, but you need to be shooting for the best possible mark. So if you write your jokes down, you can look at everything that you're saying and say, well, I don't really need all of these things. Or going back to when I said, watch your recorded sets, notice any filler words that you're using. If you're saying like or I say like absolutely too much. That is one of my things that I'm currently working on as a comedian is I need to stop saying like every other sentence. I listen to my own podcast, it's terrible. I sound like it's so bad, it's just awful. But if I write down if I were to be writing down what I'm saying, then I'm gonna stop using those filler words as much. And filler words are great when you're first starting out jokes and you're not really sure and you're kind of off on your feet. But when you have your jokes down to every single word being important, you're gonna stop using as many filler words. As I've mentioned before, I really like short form comedy versus a story comedy, or like I said, I like my one-liners. I like my little short jokes because I can use every word in my little word economy to make everything count. Stories are much harder for me to do that, so that's why I kind of avoid them. I know that eventually I'm going to need to get better, but these are things that I just do as a current comedian so that I can improve and move forward with my current style. So if I write my jokes down, then I can look at everything that I'm saying and be like, all right, well, I don't need a bunch of adjectives, so I'm gonna cut these down. I'm gonna take everything that I'm doing and make every single word fall into place correctly. And in story jokes, it's also important that you're doing this. I'm not saying that only short form should be doing this. Story jokes, it's the exact same thing. Look at your story from start to finish. What part of your story doesn't need to be in there? What part of your story isn't actually relevant to the joke? What part of your story what part of your story isn't funny? That is a huge problem with story comedy is we get so caught up in the details and we want to tell this true story that happened that we end up telling details that have nothing to do with the story, and it makes it so much harder to pay attention to what's actually going on. Or even worse, you're telling stuff and it's too detailed. This might not be even worse, but this is also bad. You're telling too many details, or you're leaving out crucial details. You need to be paying attention in your stories. Like, you ever have that friend that when they're telling a story and they say, oh, I saw Stacy do blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I don't know who Stacy is. Like, give me some context with Stacy. I don't know who these people are that you're talking about. Make sure that when you're doing your story jokes, they're coming. I need to stop telling you how to write your own jokes as side pieces and eventually just teach you guys how to write jokes. Not that I know that. Again, I'm not an expert, but these are just things that I noticed. So again, I'm just gonna wrap it up and say, write your jokes down on paper, on a computer, rather than in a phone. Obviously have them in your phone, it's for easy access. But if you're actually going to sit down and edit your jokes, you need to have a pen and paper, you need to have a computer where you can sit and in real time, remove words and add stuff, because it's just not as easy. I mean, if you want to do it in your phone, it's fine. It's just so much easier on pen and paper or on a computer than it is to be in your phone, I promise. Number 4. This is going to go back to my previous video where I was talking about the 4-step writing process, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as to why it's important. And that step is repeat your jokes. You need to be telling your joke over and over until it is so drilled into your head that you can tell it without thinking. I'm sure that there are people out there, I'm assuming that maybe you even watching this video, have a song that you don't even have to think about the words when you're telling it or when you're singing it. It just comes and you could sing along with the radio and you know every word, in your heart, and you don't even have to think about, the next word's coming up. You just know it and it just comes out before you even thinking about it. And sometimes if you even think about it, you mess up the words. That's how you need to be with your jokes. I haven't been on stage in I don't know how long, but I know that if I were to go on stage tomorrow or even later tonight, whenever time, I would start telling my joke and it would come out of me the same way that a joke or that a song that I know by heart would come out. And that is because I've told that joke countless times to the point where I don't even have to think about what comes next. There have been times where I've started telling jokes that I didn't want to tell, jokes that I've cut out because I was so used to that joke coming after a different joke. Because it is like, it's like a song for me. And maybe that's not gonna work for everyone, but I think that this is something that you should at least consider. Because if you're telling your jokes over and over, it makes it so much harder to forget your material. Also, if you're recording your sets, it allows you to tell kind of with the same information whether or not it was just a bad audience, which I know I've said before, there's no such thing as a bad audience, but it allows you to determine whether or not it is your joke or if there's something that went wrong in the audience. I mean, if you're telling the joke the same way, you're gonna be able to figure out where you need to fix it. If you keep changing it up and you have no idea what you're doing to fix it, then you're never gonna know what to do. And I'm not saying don't constantly work on your joke. I'm saying you need to be telling the joke more or less the same way, but fixing it along the way so that you can figure out, okay, it's not the way that I'm telling it, it's the actual words. You need to be telling the same joke as you keep going, but you need to be making sure that it is at least sort of close to what you're working with before. And that's the point of recording your sets. Recording your sets is so important, it really is. And I'm bad about it, I actually don't even know if I have any of my sets recorded for the past while, but that's just because I got lazy. I have no real excuse for it, so am I a bit of a hypocrite? Sure. I'm a comedian. I'm not an honest man. I'm a liar. I go on stage and I tell jokes, which are mostly lies. So fun fact, a lot of jokes aren't true, guys. That's just a fun fact. So I'll just go ahead and wrap it up and say, make sure that you're telling your jokes over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and eventually you're not even gonna have to remember what you're saying. It's just gonna come out by heart. And finally, step number 5 is trust your gut, honestly. You're a comedian, or at least you're trying to be a comedian. You know that you're funny, you think that you're funny, you have faith in yourself that you are funny. And that faith needs to be based in something. So as a comedian, you need to be trusting your gut when you're moving forward. And one of the best examples of this is if you're on stage and you have your joke written out and you know that the joke you're telling, but in the moment you think, oh, but what if I said this? And you just let a tag go. You let some little piece come out in real time, something that you hadn't planned, something that is completely off the cuff. You need to be trusting that instinct. You really do. It's not always going to work. I'm not gonna say, oh, if you're funny, you'll be funny all the time. But honestly, if you're trying to improve, you need to be trusting your gut and saying the thought that comes to your head. Because otherwise, you're gonna get trapped in this weird thought loop of trying to improve everything you've already said. If you just let your brain come up with stuff, 9 times out of, okay, maybe not 9 times out of 10, that's a bit of a liberal estimate here, but often, very often, you will come up with something on the spot that you didn't even think that you were gonna say, and it will be funny. It's just true. It might not be right away that this stuff's gonna happen, but there have been, I don't know how many times, where I've been in the middle of a joke, and again, as I've mentioned previously in this video, a joke to me is like a song. But this new tag might be like, okay, I've played this song a million times, now I'm gonna add in this wild solo that I hadn't played before and see what happens. That to me is what a new tag feels like. It's something new that you pepper into something that you've already kind of done, and then you're like, oh, it fits in perfectly. I can't believe that I hadn't said that. I remember I was doing something, I was at a bigger show. I was actually at a Beast Village right there, shout out to Beast Village. And I was doing my set at this comedy festival. And I had a joke that I told a bunch of times. It's one of my favorite jokes to this day to tell. And in real time, after the joke was done, I added this tiny little tag and got an extra little burst. And it was just one of those things where it's not huge, but it was just one of those tiny little improvements that I carried over into my other sets as well, because I had such a fun time with this little thing that I came up with on the spot. And I told it underneath realistically, probably wasn't the best idea to drop a new tag at a comedy festival when I'm supposed to be, dropping my best stuff. But it worked, and because I trusted my gut. And your confidence is going to come through on stage. If you trust yourself, the audience is going to trust you. Maybe I could do a whole thing about stage, presence, but That's one big thing, is if you trust yourself, the audience is gonna come along with you. If you are kind of unsure and you're timid, the audience is gonna pick up on that. So if you trust your gut and you're saying, oh, I know that this is going to be funny, and even if it isn't, but if you have that amount of confidence to say, oh, this is going to be funny, and it is, it's going to hit harder than you think, oh, this might be funny, and then you say it, and then people are going to be, yeah, that worked. But if you really just latch onto it, it's so much better. And also, to be fair, if it goes wrong and you're that confident, it's a little bit of a blow to the confidence, but it just feels better when it works out. So trust your gut, honestly. It's one of the best steps you can do as a comedian. So that's 5 simple things that you can be doing to improve your comedy pretty quickly. They're not the best. It isn't the top 5. This is 5 things that I personally believe in, and personally, they have worked for me. This channel isn't the best of the best. This is my tips to people. This is stuff that has worked for me. And the only reason that I'm confident in saying that these things work for me is because I like to consider myself to be pretty good for where I'm at. And I don't think that that's unreasonable to say. You know, it might sound a little bit overconfident, but that's what you need to be as a comedian. You need to trust yourself. So if you think that there's anything that I forgot, or you think there's anything that I missed, or you think that there's anything that you disagree with, let me know in the comments. You know, let me know. It helps, and also that would help some other people out. If you think that, you know, I missed something, or if I said something wrong, correct me. I'll get better. I also need to be, you know, put in my place sometimes. So make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Ring that bell so you can keep getting these notifications of videos I'll be dropping every week for the foreseeable future. Thank you guys. I am Matt with Open Microtomy.